Hey guys, so I am currently in Luxun Park in Hongkou district of Shanghai. This is one of the main parks here in Shanghai where you can find martial arts practice. It's about 36 degrees and kind of mid-afternoon, so it's unlikely anyone's going to be practicing right now, but if you come here early in the morning you can find all kinds of like Xinyi Liu He Quan, Wu style Tai Chi Chuan, like all sorts of martial arts in this park. It really is one of the best places if you're here in Shanghai and looking to check out some local martial arts. But yeah, generally you want to come sort of like 6-7 a.m. to really see anything. So a few updates for the channel. I guess you guys by now have probably seen the Wensheng Chuan interview I did with my friend Ding Shangde. If you haven't seen that, check it out. That's, I think as far as I know, probably one of the first times that the Wensheng Chuan style has been shown on YouTube, aside from like a few kind of very old Chinese DVDs that have been copied and uploaded. I think it's the first sort of real clear explanation of the style that's been done on any sort of English language media platform, so definitely check that out. It's really good, and you know, so far the feedback has been really great, and I've been chatting with Ding and he's really up for doing some more videos. He's willing to do some more Wensheng Chuan stuff, so if you guys got any questions about that, let me know, and I'll be sure to ask him to include in the next video with him. We're also thinking about doing some Baji Chuan videos together, because he has studied Baji Chuan under Li Junyi, who's one of like the top guys of Wu family Baji Chuan in Changzhou, and I'm actually learning that from him now, which I'm really enjoying. So we're going to do some videos on that together. And I guess you guys probably also saw I put a post up recently saying that I was looking at exploring boat boxing, or Chuan Chuan, which is a native style from this like Yangtze River Delta region here in Jiangnan, this sort of southeast China region. Unfortunately, that interview was kind of a disaster. Long story short, I'm pretty sure the guy has just made up the style himself based on kind of an oral story that there used to be such a style. I will do a full video. After I went to interview him, I was kind of thinking, should I even release the footage or should I just kind of scrap it? But I think, you know, an important part of me being a martial art documentarian is to kind of show the reality of Chinese martial arts, the good, the bad, and the ugly. I don't always want to show, you know, all these really interesting, like amazing masters and whatever. I do also want to show kind of the disappointments. So I think I am going to do something with that footage. I'm just trying to figure out how exactly to present it to you guys. So I want to just interrupt this video briefly to talk to you guys about a product that I use quite a lot myself. Now, I think you know me well enough by now to know that I would not endorse just anything. If I'm going to promote something, it's only going to be something that I truly believe in and something that I genuinely do use myself. Some of you may know that I also work as a journalist and geopolitical analyst. And having this line of work has made me acutely aware of the biases that are present in a lot of mainstream media reporting on world events. And as such, it becomes harder to know what's really going on and to separate reality from the narratives that are being spun. And so one of the products that I use to get around that is something called Ground News. Ground News is an app and website that combines news from around the world in one place so you can compare coverage. For every news source, you can see if they have a political bias, how reliable their reporting is, and who owns them. You can verify your information and know where the news is coming from. With Ground News, you can see what the media is exaggerating, sensationalizing, over or under reporting. You can see who funds each publication, compare coverage, and think critically about the information you consume. Go to check.ground.news/monkeystealerspeech to check it out now. If you subscribe for my link, you get 40% off the Vantage subscription. Anyway, the purpose of this video is to answer the questions that you guys left in the comments section about a week ago for this Q&A that's been a long time coming. I thought I'd come here to Luxun Park. I was kind of hoping maybe we could find some martial arts, but honestly, it is just way too hot here. I doubt there's anything. I was originally actually thinking about taking you guys to Jingwu Park because there's all statues of all the old Kung Fu masters from Jingwu there, but what I didn't realize is that Jingwu Park is actually nowhere near Jingwu Athletic Association, which is just around the corner from here. So here I am instead, and on that note, let's get to your questions. All right, so first question is from Tommaso Tiranti from Italy. He said, I love the way you portray martial arts and your love for Kung Fu. I also practice Hung Gar and I love it because a lot of the teachings helped me in my daily life. But the teaching is only for Taolu or forms. When we do fighting application, we rarely do pressure testing and never sparring. I want to ask you, how do you train your Kung Fu and how can someone improve martial arts alone? So I guess what you're asking here is about sparring practice. Yeah, look, this is honestly something that's kind of lacking in the vast majority of Kung Fu classes, and I think there's a little bit of a disconnect because like here in China, the traditional way is it's something more like a mentorship. So you go to see your teacher and you get guidance, you get corrections, and then you're supposed to go off and kind of practice and develop by yourself. So the understanding here in China is kind of, well, you're going to go off and kind of just find people to spar with and test with, and then kind of come back to your teacher and get feedback and talk to them, talk through what happened. Unfortunately, I guess kind of in the modern day, that's not really such a big thing anymore. Like most people in modern life, they don't have time to dedicate themselves fully to martial arts, and so Chinese martial arts kind of hasn't really moved with the times and given like a more sort of comprehensive curriculum that encompasses all the training that you need within a class. But on that note, I do think that's really going to be your best way. If you really want to develop your sparring ability, try to find a bunch of like-minded people, get together, do some sparring, and something that I suggest, something that I do a lot with people that I train with, and I think's a really, really good method, is not necessarily just free sparring, but take a few techniques that you want to work on. Put some MMA gloves on. You don't have to go full contact. You can go with as much contact as you feel comfortable with. And then just have the person kind of generally just throw different kinds of attacks at you with, a reasonable, whatever amount of contact you're comfortable with. Don't really tell them the kind of techniques you want to work on, but just try and work on those by yourself and try and only respond or counter with the certain techniques that you want to work on. So just really try and test yourself and your ability to apply those techniques under increasing amounts of pressure. That, I think, is probably one of the best things that you're going to do. Now, that said, if you can't find like-minded people that want to train together with you, then I would say the next best thing, and it's what I used to do in Australia, is just go train some like modern martial arts. I was mostly into BJJ, but I also used to do a fair bit of Muay Thai as well while I was in Sydney. I used to do that a couple of times a week on top of my BJJ, so that was a really nice way just to be able to spar, be able to do some contact work, just to keep your reactions up, keep your stamina up and that sort of thing. So yeah, look, if you can't find like-minded people to spar with, then I would say just go and find some Muay Thai, boxing, kickboxing, like whatever, just something that you can use to supplement your own training. So that's what I found's the best. Hopefully that kind of helps. Okay, the next question is from Green Shifu, and he's saying, I would like to understand the salutations of forms and if they're related to self-defense moves or simply taught as a respectful aspect. Thank you. So honestly speaking, the purpose of salutations is really just as a bow, but kind of as a novelty. There's people do kind of try to draw applications from them. And I guess some of the, in the old days where it was quite a dangerous society, so there are stories that I've heard, of teachers kind of back in the day having these like certain things with their bow that they were kind of always ready in case when they're bowing to someone, the person's going to suddenly try and sucker punch them. So they kind of always had an intention that their bow could quite easily turn into a guard and they could counter and stuff from there. But that kind of aside, I think overall the main purpose really is just to show your respect at the beginning and end of forms. And there's kind of a cultural aspect to it too, that a lot of the salutations, particularly in southern Chinese martial arts, originate from the Tiandi Hui, which was like a secret society trying to overthrow the Qing dynasty and restore the Ming dynasty. So they had quite a lot of kind of a little bit like Masons in the West. They had a lot of secret hand signs and logos and kind of codes, like code words they would say to each other to recognize whether they're members. And I think a lot of the bowing and stuff in southern Chinese martial arts is kind of a legacy of that. Okay, so Jason Zibat has asked me, do I have plans to delve into Taiji, maybe tours of historical sites? I actually got quite a lot of questions for the Q&A with people asking, have you done this style, or have you done that style, or would you do this style? I mean, honestly, look, the best thing you can do in that case is just go on YouTube and just search Monkey Steals Peach and add the style of the name that you want to see. And if a video comes up, then I've done it. If not, then I haven't. As far as future projects, at the moment I'm focusing more on just documenting the martial arts here in Shanghai, mostly due to just financial constraints. I do want to try and do some trips to other places. I'm hoping to go up to Shandong in September, so there'll possibly be some exciting news there, but I don't want to say too much until that's actually fixed. But yeah, that's something maybe in the works. Other than that, we'll see. Obviously, the better the channel does, the more I'm able to travel and the more stuff I'm able to do here in China. And Igor Banin, sorry, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, has asked, I'm curious to listen a bit more about your trip to Okinawa. I'm a karate practitioner interested in knowing if you have the chance to explore local folklore religion, how similar or not it is to Shintoism in Japan. Yeah, look, unfortunately, my time in Okinawa was so damn busy, like pretty much just filming all the time. So mostly what you saw on the video is pretty much what we did. Regarding Shintoism and Okinawan religion, look, I'm not really an expert in Okinawa. It's definitely not my area, but at least from the little bit I know, and please anyone correct me if I'm wrong, is that the original kind of Okinawan indigenous religion was a bit more like sort of animism, or like worshipping certain spirits that were a little bit like Shintoism, but a bit more sort of not really sort of organized. But it seems like when Okinawa was annexed by Japan and sort of Japanese culture got a bit more widespread there, that a lot of the original kind of spiritual practices and beliefs got sort of absorbed into Shintoism. But again, it's not really my area, so forgive me if I'm kind of mis-explaining there. There's actually a few people you see behind doing they're not doing martial arts, but they are working out. That is a really great thing that you see here in China, is that like all the old people, rather than just sitting at home, like taking ridiculous amounts of medicine and just watching TV, they get out, they train, they exercise, like pretty much every day in the parks. It's one of the reasons why I think, despite, you know, pollution and food safety issues and stuff, like Shanghai has like pretty decent longevity. I can't remember the statistics, but I read somewhere that within sort of Asian cities, it does have one of the longest life expectancies. So I guess that is to do with people just kind of getting out and exercising, whether it's martial arts or just, you know, other stuff. So my man Tengu Martial Arts, he has a great YouTube channel. Just if you haven't checked it out, go check it out. He lives in Japan, does some really kind of deep dives into some quite philosophical, cultural, kind of societal things on martial arts. I think it's really interesting, a lot of the stuff he talks about, so go check him out. He's asked me quite a few questions. The first one is, if for whatever reason you could not have pursued Mantis, but you had your current experience of various styles, what would you choose as your primary style? I think the answer to that is pretty easy. I'm going to turn the camera this way because there's a bunch of guys playing some Chinese music here. I think the answer to that's pretty easy. I train Baji Chuan, which is exactly what I'm doing now with my friend Ding. It's a style I really, really enjoy. I think it's very complementary to Mantis because it's kind of similar in some ways, but quite different. So that's what I'm doing now. But honestly, I don't really have any sort of bias towards styles. Just personally, due to my own background and my own body type and things, I prefer these sort of northern Shandong and Tangzhou styles. I think they fit with me best. And his next question is there a city or province of China you're partial to for Kung Fu or otherwise? I really like the west of China. I think like Sichuan, Yunnan, also going up to like Qinghai, all those areas where there's all these different ethnic minorities, kind of the borderlands. You're getting towards sort of Tibet to the north, then you've got like Laos, Myanmar to the south. It's such a tapestry of just different cultures, and I really love that area. It's very exotic and very colourful, I suppose, is the way to say it. As far as living there, though, I don't think I could really live there. I do think that for living, Shanghai is probably the best place in China that you could live, in my opinion, because it's got, you know, as a Westerner, as much as I love Chinese culture, I do like my creature comforts, and Shanghai is cosmopolitan and international, and it still offers all of those creature comforts that I do need from time to time. So I think as a place to live, I love here, but as a place to travel, I like Western China. And he's got a few questions. Another one, do you think arts like Kung Fu should be articulated and presented to the West in an age where the market is so wholly dominated by combat sports? Sorry, he's asking, how do you think when the West is so dominated by combat sport? That's a pretty difficult question. Honestly, though, I think trying to like paddy to people who, I mean, you know, I get like a fair amount of trolls on the channel, like, oh, try that on Xu Xiaodong, try that against MMA or whatever, which is honestly just the most immature thing, because like, honestly, who cares? I'm not out here trying to meet world-class professional fighters. I'm out here trying to document like age-old traditions and how they're being preserved, and how they you know, how they impact people's lives and how people here view them. And this is a different culture and a different society where people have a different set of values, and being the world's best fighter for the most part, you know, aside from like a small minority of loud people on social media who make a fool of themselves, the vast majority of Chinese are just doing it for other reasons, and their values are quite different. So I think it's a difficult one, because I don't really think there's any way you can try and show what we do in a way that's going to try and win these kind of people over, because they're so fixed on their own worldview and things have to be a certain way, that I think that's always just going to be a losing battle. And even if, you know, you were filming people going out, winning fights, you know, challenge matches, whatever, they're still going to find something to criticize. I mean, come on, that's the internet. So yeah, maybe it's a little bit negative, but honestly, I with everything I do, I don't even, like, these people are kind of not even in my what's the word? I just don't even really consider or spend any time to think about people like that. Like, I do what I do. I mean, I do BJJ, I've done MMA, I've done Muay Thai. Certainly not to any sort of professional level, just on the amateur level, just for fun. But yeah, I don't see any reason to sort of try to win these people over. I think the best thing we can do to promote and preserve Chinese martial arts, in my personal opinion, is honestly to keep doing kind of like what I'm doing. I honestly, hand on heart, believe that I think this is the best way. And the reason I say that is because, you know, I reached 100,000 subscribers not too long ago. My videos get quite a decent amount of views. Clearly there is interest in this kind of stuff, and growing interest. So I'm very happy with that. And I think, you know, offering people something different, rather than trying to imitate combat sports and trying to live up to their own standards, I think sort of setting our own standards of what we deem as important in our practice, valuable in our lives, I think is more important. You know, setting our own sort of parameters rather than trying to live up to other people's, I think is important. I think the only thing that's the big problem with Chinese martial arts is some people on social media who have sort of ulterior motives, who are just posting all this kind of fake martial arts stuff. They're, you know, picking up on a vocal minority and, you know, amplifying that and trying to say that's the whole thing, whereas the vast majority of Chinese martial artists, I mean, God, I've been here since 2007, you know, I've been around Taiwan, Hong Kong, Southeast Asia, whatever, like, I've seen a lot of stuff, and the vast majority of people are not making any outlandish claims. They're not trying to be professional fighters, they're not trying to claim they can beat everyone else up in the world or whatever. They're just doing what they enjoy doing, and they're sharing it with people that want to listen. And it's just a small minority of YouTube channels that are kind of obsessed with picking up on a very small minority of people here in China that are honestly delusional and kind of mocking them. and then people are thinking that that represents the whole. And there are also some YouTube channels that for commercial gain are, you know, promoting, you know, what you call woo-woo stuff, you know, all this kind of like, you know, hold a chili pepper and send you flying, and, you know, tap on your wrist and you hop all over the place, and using all this very mysterious, obscure language that no one can understand, bastardizing Chinese terms to make them sound very aloof and mysterious, and like you can't really like understand their meaning unless you spend years like training and spending all your money on these courses and seminars. I think that's honestly very detrimental to martial arts. And, you know, these people are making up these fake styles, and they're, you know, selling these courses online and running these camps and whatever. And sort of a lot of these big social media personalities are, in my opinion, completely misrepresenting martial arts. And so I think that's very harmful. And so for me, I just try to not necessarily get into like a war of words and start dissing these people, but just showing things that I feel are authentic and legitimate, and just letting people make up their own minds, just offering another voice, an alternative voice, and people are able to judge for themselves whether they think that what these things are doing are legit, and whether this is real, you know, high-level internal stuff, or whether it's gimmicks, and whether, you know, what the kind of stuff that I'm showing here is legit. And that's up to people to make their own decision on. So that was quite long. It was quite a difficult question. So hopefully that did answer it. And I have a couple more questions. Sorry, YouTube doesn't always show the names of people in the YouTube studio comments. I don't know who this is. It's just coming up as like a bunch of numbers and letters. It's saying, I've been wanting to ask about the topic of competition. Are Kung Fu tournaments a thing in mainland China? Are they different from ones in the West? Would you be interested in filming one? Yeah, I mean, they have forms competitions are really big here. They like those. It's good for the kids. You know, it gets the kids out. It gives them something to work towards. Adults, hobbyists enjoy it as well. It's a good, I don't think there's, you know, a huge amount of value in it myself, because it's quite easy to get gold medals in these forms competitions, honestly speaking. Like, I have done a few because my teacher used to make me. Pretty much as long as you take part, you're going to get a gold. But I think it's a good social thing. It's good for, you know, it's a good way to get out and meet different schools, people who practice different styles, get to kind of showcase what you do and network. So those are very popular here in China. There are also sanda competitions, shuaijiao competitions, sort of not as prominent as they used to be, but they are still a thing here. MMA is kind of picking up, although it's not really my main area, so I'm not going to talk too much about it, but I do know that there is sort of an MMA scene definitely growing here in Shanghai. So hopefully that answers that. And another question from another person whose name is not displaying. If you could answer again how you began training with Kuo Quan Ping in Hong Kong and what happened after that, that would be great. Yeah, so I met Kuo Quan Ping for the first time in 2007 when I was 18. I was backpacking through China. I went to Hong Kong for a few days, and I managed to get in touch with him because I'd read a blog post about him from someone who went to train with him, and said that he did speak Mandarin, although he didn't speak English, which was good because I was just starting to learn Mandarin at the time. So I went and I spent a few days training with him at his home in Hong Kong. We trained on his rooftop. Yeah, that was a really great experience. Pretty much the entire few days we just did loads of chi sao. He just showed me loads of stuff. His internal power was amazing. He was absolutely solid. His structure was just immovable, and his power was just crazy. He was really, really good. And then when I started teaching English in Qingdao, I went back to Hong Kong in 2008, and I trained with him again for a few days and basically repeated the experience. But he also does Bagua and Taiji, so he actually taught me some Bagua basics as well on the second trip. And yeah, I was unable to get in touch with him when I went back to Hong Kong to film that series 2 years ago. But I would still love to go and film a proper interview with him. He's got an amazing life story. He was born in Indonesia. Then when he was very young, his parents moved back to China. You know, in the early days of communist China, there was a big movement to try and encourage overseas Chinese to move back to China. And of course, if you know about the history, Chinese in Indonesia were being discriminated quite heavily, so a lot of them did come back and settle in Guangdong, so he was one of those. So then he grew up in mainland China, sort of in the early days of the communist regime. He went to university at Wuhan University, which is one of the top physical education universities in China. He was like a bodybuilder, a modern wushu athlete, a wrestler, and a traditional martial arts as well. And then he, very quickly, that little island back there, I'm not going to go into today because you have to actually pay to go on the island, but that's where we used to film all the Jianghu stuff, me and Josh, because it was 10 yuan to go into that island. You could just cross a little bridge, you pay a ticket, and there's no one there. And there's a little old traditional Chinese tea shop there, so we used to go over there. We filmed a lot of stuff there. So yeah, just a little thing. But anyway, yeah, back to the story. So he went to Wuhan University. He was training, modern wushu, traditional martial arts, wrestling, bodybuilding, all this stuff. Then when he graduated, he went back down to Guangdong, started training Wing Chun. And I think it was in the 60s, during the Cultural Revolution, he fled to Hong Kong. And then from what he told me, when he got to Hong Kong, because Yip Man Wing Chun was kind of the established thing there, Yip Man was really big, he had lots of students, he kind of had to fight a lot of people to, earn the right to be able to teach himself. So he had a lot of challenge matches, he won a lot of them, and then he was able to establish himself teaching the Yun Kei San style of Wing Chun in Hong Kong. So that's his story, a really interesting person. I'd love to go back and see him. He's one of the kind of last old dinosaurs of old martial arts, I think. Yeah. So that, let me see.